Cold wind swept across the alien war camp, carrying the smell of burning metal and dust. The camp was built on high, rocky ground, surrounded by strange black towers and sharp iron walls. Alien soldiers with scaled armor and yellow eyes stood, in formation, their claws gripping long spears. In the middle of the camp stood a human, Captain Marcus Hale. His hands were bound, his uniform torn from weeks of captivity. He stood tall despite the chains, his blue eyes fixed on the towering figure before him. Commander Krath, the alien leader, looked down from his stone platform. His thick armor plates reflected the pale sunlight, and the scars across his jaw showed years of battle. Krath's voice was deep and full of contempt. "You humans," Krath said slowly, his words clear in the common trade language, "are soft, weak. You survive only because you hide behind walls and machines." Marcus did not answer. He knew. Krath wanted a reaction, a sign of fear or anger. Instead, Marcus kept his face calm. Krath's soldiers growled with amusement. Around them, alien banners fluttered in the wind, painted with the mark of a roaring beast. "The Varrock. You will face the Varrock beast," Krath continued. "It has killed 36 of my warriors. You will go into its hunting grounds, with nothing. If by some miracle you return—" His voice paused, a mocking smile on his face. "Then by our tradition, you may challenge me for leadership." The soldiers laughed loudly at the absurdity. To them, the idea of a human surviving was a joke. Marcus finally spoke. "And if I die?" Krath's grin widened. "Then you prove me right." Two guards stepped forward and cut the chains from Marcus's wrists. One of them shoved a small pack into his hands, a skin of water and a dull knife, nothing more. The camp gates creaked open, revealing the barren lands beyond. Jagged rocks rose like teeth from the ground. Strange, twisted trees reached toward the sky, their leaves black and sharp. Somewhere in the distance, a deep rumble echoed, the sound of something large moving. Krath leaned forward. "Run, human! Run as far as you can! It will not matter!" Marcus walked out through the gate, feeling the eyes of hundreds of alien warriors on his back. The gates slammed shut behind him with a sound like a final verdict. The air outside was dry and thin. Marcus took a slow breath, scanning the land. He knew almost nothing about the Varrock beast, except what he had overheard from the guards. It was fast, armored, and relentless. He climbed a low ridge to get a better view. The land stretched out in all directions, broken by canyons and strange rock pillars. Far to the west, a storm cloud hung low, lightning flashing inside it. To the east, the ground dipped into a deep valley filled with mist. He chose the valley. If the beast hunted by sight, the mist might help him hide. As he descended, the wind grew warmer and the smell of damp earth replaced the dry dust of the ridge. The mist swirled around him, making it hard to see more than a few steps ahead. Marcus moved slowly, knife in hand, listening to every sound. Somewhere far away, he heard the cry of a strange bird, high and metallic. Then silence again. He found a cluster of smooth stones and sat for a moment to drink from the water skin. His mind worked quickly. He would need more than just a knife to survive. He looked at the strange black trees nearby. Their branches were thin but strong, and the leaves were edged like blades. He cut a few branches, sharpening them into crude spears. As he worked, he remembered the alien guards talking about the Varrock. "It can smell blood from a mile away," one had said. "It can crush stone with its jaws," another boasted. Marcus finished his spears and hid them under a flat rock for later. By nightfall, the mist had thickened. Marcus found a narrow cave in the side of the valley wall. He crawled inside, the space barely wide enough to sit. He lit a small fire using dry bark and kept it hidden from view. He thought about Earth, about his unit. He had been sent on a reconnaissance mission when Krath's forces captured him. Now, instead of a clean execution, he had been thrown into some alien trial, one he was expected to lose. Outside, the silence broke. A deep, thunder-like sound rolled through the valley, followed by the crash of trees breaking. Marcus froze. The sound was not far. The Varric beast was hunting. Hours later, Marcus woke to the sound of sniffing, low, wet breaths just outside the cave. His pulse quickened. Slowly, he peered out. Through the mist, he saw a massive shadow. It was larger than any earth animal, its back covered in jagged armor plates. Two glowing eyes scanned the ground, and steam rose from its nostrils. The beast's head turned toward the cave. Marcus stayed still, holding his breath. The creature took a step. Closer, its claws scraping against the rock. Then, suddenly, a noise in the distance, the cry of another animal, made it turn away. The ground shook as it moved off into the mist. Marcus exhaled slowly. He knew it would be back. The next morning, he began to explore the valley more carefully. He found a stream where he refilled his water and washed his face. He also found claw, marks in a tree, deep grooves the size of his forearm. He tested the spears he had made and decided they would not be enough. He needed a trap, something that could pierce the beast's armor or at least slow it down. At midday, he found what he was looking for, a narrow passage between two high rock walls, just wide enough for the beast to pass through. Above it, loose boulders balanced dangerously. Marcus smiled. If he could lure the Varric here, a rock slide might do what spears could not. As the sun set, Marcus returned to the cave. He sharpened more branches, preparing for the next day. The wind outside carried a distant roar, the same roar painted on the alien banners in the camp. The trial had begun, and the beast was out there. But Marcus Hale was not planning to die. The morning came with a pale red light cutting through the mist. The air was cold, but Marcus felt the heat of determination in his chest. He had survived one night, but he knew the real danger had not yet begun. The Varric beast would hunt again, and this time it might not turn away. Marcus left the cave early, heading toward the narrow rock passage he had found the day before. He studied the cliff walls above it, marking where the loose boulders could fall. He would need time to prepare, and time was a rare thing in this deadly place. He began gathering materials, long branches from the black trees, vines from the valley floor, and sharp stones from the riverbank. As he worked, he kept glancing at the mist, half expecting to see the beast's glowing eyes appear at any moment. By midday, the trap started to take shape. He tied the vines into a crude rope and looped them around the largest boulders. If pulled at the right time, the rocks would tumble down and hopefully land on the beast's head or back. The valley was not silent today. Marcus heard the rustle of movement more than once. Soft, careful, almost human. At first, he thought it was his imagination. Then, while carrying a bundle of branches, he caught a glimpse of something between the trees. It was not the Varric beast. A small figure, hunched and quick, slipped through the mist. Its skin was pale green, its eyes large and dark. It wore no armor, only a ragged cloth. Marcus realized it was one of the alien outcasts he had heard about, those too weak or injured to serve in Krath's army, abandoned here to die. The figure froze when it saw him. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then, without a word, it turned and vanished into the fog. Marcus didn't chase. He had no reason to start a fight with someone who was also trying to survive, but he couldn't ignore the thought that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone in this battle. That night, Marcus didn't return to the cave. Instead, he climbed a tree near the rock passage and tied himself to the trunk with vines, resting just above the mist. From this height, he could see the faint glow of the stars overhead. He thought about the alien tradition, the rule that if he killed the Varric beast and wore its bones, he could challenge Krath for leadership. To the aliens, this was an impossible test. To Marcus, it was a chance. If he survived, he might not only save himself, but gain something powerful enough to change the war. The sound of snapping branches woke him before dawn. Marcus peered through the mist. His heart began to pound. The Varric beast was here. It moved slowly, its massive body sliding between the trees. The creature's armor plates caught the faint light, and its claws dug deep into the soil with each step. Its head was low, sniffing the ground, following a trail. Marcus knew that trail led to the cave he had stayed in before. The beast was tracking him. He climbed down quickly and began moving toward the rock passage, careful to stay downwind. Every step was silent, every breath controlled. The beast roared suddenly, the sound echoing off the valley walls. Birds scattered from the trees, and the ground seemed to shake. Marcus didn't look back. He reached the passage and crouched behind a boulder, gripping the vine rope in both hands. The heavy steps grew louder. Through the mist, the beast's shadow appeared, wide as a small house, moving with a strange mix of grace and power. Marcus waited. The beast entered the passage, its head swaying from side to side. Its glowing eyes scanned the rocks, its nostrils flaring. Marcus saw the deep scars on its armored plates, proof of many battles. When the beast was almost halfway through, Marcus pulled the rope with all his strength. The first boulder fell, struck the beast's shoulder, making it stagger and roar in pain. Another rock hit its side, cracking one of the smaller armor plates. Dust and stone fragments filled the air. Marcus dropped the rope and grabbed a spear, rushing forward to strike at the beast's exposed spot. The spear tip hit the gap in the armor, but the creature twisted, snapping the weapon in two. It turned on him, jaws opening to reveal rows of sharp teeth. Marcus barely dove aside as the beast lunged, its claws tearing into the ground where he had been standing. The narrow passage slowed the beast, but it didn't stop it. Marcus scrambled backward, grabbing another spear from the pile he had hidden earlier. He jabbed at the beast's head, aiming for its eyes, but the armor plates along its face deflected most of the blows. The beast slammed its head forward, knocking Marcus off his feet. His back hit the rock wall hard, and his vision blurred. He rolled just in time to avoid a crushing claw. The fight was short, but fierce. Marcus realized the boulders had hurt the beast, but not enough to kill it. Its breathing was heavier now, its movements slower, but its rage was greater. He retreated into the mist, weaving between the black trees. The beast followed, its glowing eyes like twin lanterns in the fog. For hours, the chase went on. Marcus never stopped moving, using fallen logs and narrow gaps between rocks to keep distance. He led the beast away from the passage, toward a part of the valley where the ground was unstable. At last, near the edge of a shallow marsh, he stopped. The ground here was soft, covered in tangled roots and pools of mud. Marcus planted his last. Spear upright in the earth and waited, the beast charged. Its weight sank deep into the mud, slowing its steps. Marcus darted to the side, snatching the spear and driving it toward the beast's face. The point struck the edge of one eye, making the creature bellow in pain and thrash wildly. Mud splashed, trees cracked, and Marcus barely escaped being crushed. The beast pulled itself free and retreated into the mist, leaving deep scars in the earth. Marcus stood alone, breathing hard. He knew this was not the end. The Varric beast was hurt now, and a wounded predator was even more dangerous. But he also knew something else. He could fight it, and maybe, just maybe, he could win. The mist was thicker than before. It clung to the ground like a living thing, curling around rocks and tree trunks. Marcus moved carefully, keeping his steps light. Somewhere out there, the Varric beast was licking its wounds. The memory of their last fight burned in his mind. The boulders had hurt it. The spear had cut near its eye. It was proof that the creature could be injured. Proof that it wasn't invincible. Marcus stopped at a stream and washed the mud from his hands. He drank slowly, scanning the fog for movement. Every sound mattered now. A snapping twig could be the wind, or it could be death. For the rest of the day, Marcus worked on something bigger than just a spear or a trap. He had an idea, a way to finish the beast. The marsh had slowed it before. If he could combine that with something sharp and heavy, he might pierce its armor. He found a large fallen tree, its trunk already half rotted. Using his knife, he cut a section of thick branch and shaped it into a heavy point. He bound sharpened stone to the end with vines, making a weapon more like a hunting pike than a spear. It was crude, but it had weight. If he could get above the beast, maybe from a ledge or a rock wall, he could drive it down into one of the weak points in its armor. That evening, Marcus followed the beast's trail. It wasn't hard. The creature's massive claws left deep furrows in the ground. He found patches of broken branches, splintered trees, and large splashes of dried blood. The trail led him to a strange place, a hollow in the valley floor surrounded by twisted trees. The air was heavy with the smell of wet stone and decay. Marcus crouched low, moving slowly. In the center of the hollow, the Varric beast lay resting. Its head was down, sides rising and falling with slow, deep breaths. The wound near its eye was crusted with dark blood. Marcus studied the ground. To one side, a cliff wall rose sharply. If he climbed that and timed it right, he could leap down onto the beast's back. But there was risk. If the beast woke before he struck, he would have nowhere to run. He decided to test his plan first. Climbing halfway up the wall, he searched for loose stones that could be dropped. He found several sharp-edged rocks and positioned them above the hollow. Taking a deep breath, Marcus threw one. It struck the ground near the beast's head with a loud crack. The creature's eyes snapped open. It roared, shaking the ground, and rose to its full, terrifying height. Marcus dropped another rock, this one hitting the creature's shoulder. The beast spun, scanning the cliff. It saw him. The roar that followed was deeper, angrier. The beast charged the cliff, its claws tearing at the rock. Marcus climbed higher, his hands scraping against the stone, until he reached a narrow ledge. The beast couldn't reach him, but it didn't leave. It prowled at the base of the cliff, tail lashing, eyes glowing like twin fires in the mist. The standoff lasted until nightfall. When darkness came, the beast finally moved away. Marcus didn't climb down immediately. He waited, making sure it was truly gone. When he finally descended, the ground felt colder. He realized he was shivering, both from the night air and the weight of what was coming. The next day, Marcus returned to the marsh. This time, he set his trap. He found the deepest part of the muddy ground and planted sharpened stakes just below the surface, angled upward. He covered them with reeds and mud so they couldn't be seen. If he could lure the beast here, slow it down in the mud, and strike from above, he might be able to end the hunt. Before night, he caught sight of movement in the trees again. The pale green outcast. This time, the figure didn't run. Instead, it approached slowly, holding something wrapped in leaves. Marcus stayed still, watching. The alien stopped a few steps away and unwrapped the bundle. Inside was a cluster of red berries. It placed them on a rock between them, then stepped back. Marcus took one cautiously and tasted it. Sweet, not poisonous. The alien nodded once, then vanished into the mist without a word. It was strange, but Marcus understood. This was not an offer of friendship, but a recognition. Two survivors crossing paths. That night, Marcus slept in a tree again. The distant roars told him the beast was still hunting. When dawn came, The sky was heavy with storm clouds. Lightning flashed far away. Marcus took it as a sign the hunt needed to end soon. By midday, he was ready. He followed the beast's trail again, this time making noise deliberately, snapping branches, leaving clear footprints. The beast would smell him soon enough. Hours passed before he heard it. The low, rumbling growl, the ground shaking. Marcus ran toward the marsh, keeping just ahead of the sound. His lungs burned, his legs ached, but he didn't stop. The beast burst from the trees behind him, moving like a living avalanche. Mud and water sprayed as it entered the marsh. Its first steps sank deep, slowing it down. Marcus climbed the tree he had marked earlier, gripping his heavy pike. The beast struggled forward, roaring in frustration, its claws catching in the hidden stakes. This was the moment. Marcus leapt. The world became a blur of motion. The storm's wind roared in his ears as he fell. The pike struck true, sliding between two armor plates on the beast's neck. The creature screamed, twisting violently. Marcus clung to the weapon with all his strength. The beast reared, trying to shake him off. Mud churned beneath its feet. It slammed sideways into a tree, nearly crushing him. Marcus pulled the pike free and struck again, aiming for the same. Wound. Blood, dark and hot, sprayed across the marsh. The beast staggered. For the first time, Marcus saw fear in its glowing eyes. The beast turned and fled into the mist, crashing through the trees. Marcus collapsed to his knees in the mud, breathing hard. His body ached from the impact, his hands raw from gripping the weapon. It wasn't dead yet, but it was hurt badly. And now, Marcus had shown himself that he could face it and win. The hunt had turned. The storm broke in the night. Rain fell hard over the valley, turning the ground into rivers of mud. Lightning flashed again and again, lighting up the black trees in sudden white bursts. Marcus sat under the cover of a leaning rock, sharpening his pike by the light of a small fire. Every sound outside made his muscles tense. Somewhere out there, the Varric beast was bleeding and angry. He knew it would come for him. The rain was both a blessing and a curse. It would wash away his scent, making him harder to track. But it would also make the ground slippery and dangerous. Marcus was ready. The hunt had gone on long enough. By morning, the storm had weakened, though rain still fell in steady drops. Marcus followed the trail of broken branches and deep claw marks in the earth. The beast's path was easy to see. It had crashed through everything in its way. The trail led him to a wide canyon where the ground sloped downward into a rocky pit. Pools of rainwater reflected the gray sky. The air was heavy with the smell of blood. Marcus crouched at the edge and saw it, the Varric beast, lying near a rock wall. Its breathing was uneven, each breath making a low, rumbling sound. The wounds on its neck and shoulder were darker now, edges swollen. It was weaker, but still dangerous. Marcus didn't rush in. He circled the canyon, looking for higher ground. A ledge ran above the pit, with sharp rocks jutting out like the teeth of a trap. If he could get the beast below that ledge, he could finish it with one final strike. He climbed quietly, testing each foothold before trusting it. The rain made the rocks slick, but he moved with care, his pike strapped to his back. From above, he studied the beast. It shifted its head slowly, sniffing the air. Its eyes still glowed faintly, but their light was weaker than before. Marcus picked up a stone and threw it to the far side of the pit. The sound echoed. The beast's head turned, its body dragging across the ground as it moved to investigate. That was his chance. Marcus leapt down from the ledge, landing on the beast's back. The creature roared in shock and pain, thrashing wildly. Marcus gripped the pike and drove it deep into the wound in its neck. The beast rolled, trying to crush him under its weight. Marcus pulled the weapon free and struck again, this time pushing with all his strength until he felt the point break through into something vital. A final deafening roar filled the canyon. The beast's massive body shuddered, then went still. Its breath stopped. The ground was silent except for the rain. Marcus slid off the creature's back, landing heavily in the mud. He stayed there for a moment, breathing hard, rain running down his face. The fight was over. He had done what 36 alien warriors could not. For a long moment, he just stared at the beast. Then he remembered the alien tradition, the one Krath had mocked him with. If he returned wearing the beast's bones, he could challenge the leader. Marcus set to work. It took hours. He stripped the beast's massive skull, cleaning it as best he could with rainwater. The armor plates along its shoulders and chest were heavy, but he managed to break them free, tying them together with vines. The smell of the creature clung to everything, but he didn't care. By the time he finished, the rain had stopped. The sun broke through the clouds, lighting the valley in a pale gold glow. Marcus stood wearing the beast's shoulder plates as armor, the skull tied across his back like a trophy. It was time to return. The journey back to the alien camp took 2 days. Marcus moved carefully, conserving his strength. The weight of the armor slowed him, but it also gave him a strange feeling. Not just protection, but presence. On the morning of the 3rd day, he saw the camp's black towers on the horizon. Smoke rose from the fires inside. Alien banners still waved, the mark of the Varric beast painted proudly across them. Marcus smiled at the thought of what was coming. The gates opened slowly when the guards spotted him. At first, they didn't seem to understand what they were seeing. Then the whispers began. It's him. The human. He's wearing the beast's bones. Marcus walked into the camp without slowing, the skull on his back casting a long shadow in the morning light. The alien soldiers stepped aside as he passed, their eyes fixed on him. Some looked afraid, others looked impressed. At the far end of the camp, Commander Krath stood on his stone platform, surrounded by his council. His eyes widened when he saw Marcus. You, Krath growled, stepping forward. You live. Marcus stopped at the foot of the platform. I told you I wouldn't. Die! Krath's gaze dropped to the beast's armor. His jaw tightened. By our tradition, he spoke the words reluctantly, almost choking on them. You may challenge me for leadership. The crowd around them murmured, some in shock, others in excitement. Marcus didn't raise his voice, but his words carried. I accept. The air in the camp shifted. The soldiers knew what this meant. The duel for leadership was sacred in their culture. Once declared, it could not be refused. Krath's claws tightened on the hilt of his weapon. Then prepare yourself, human. Tomorrow we fight. Marcus met his gaze without fear. I've been preparing since the day you sent me out there. That night, the camp was alive with whispers. The human who was supposed to die had returned wearing the beast's bones. The challenge to Krath would be unlike anything they had seen before. Marcus sat alone near the edge of the camp, the beast's skull beside him. He thought about Earth, about his people. If he won, this wouldn't just be a victory for him. It could change the future between humans and Krath's kind. And if he lost, at least he had proven that humans were not weak. The morning sun rose over the alien war camp, casting long shadows across the stone arena where thousands had gathered. The crowd was a mix of Krath's warriors, council members, and outcasts, silent but buzzing with tension. Today, a challenge, unlike any before, would unfold. Marcus stood at one side of the arena, wearing the Varric beast's armor, its heavy plates clinking softly with his movements. His breath was steady, his eyes calm. Across the sand stood Commander Krath, massive and scarred, his claws flexing around the haft of a jagged blade. His gaze burned with pride and fury. The council chief raised his hand, signaling the start. The air was thick with expectation. Krath charged first, his speed surprising for his size. He swung his blade in a powerful arc, aiming to end the fight quickly. Marcus dodged smoothly, his human agility turning Krath's strength against him. The crowd gasped. A human moving so fast was unexpected. Marcus remembered the lessons of the wild: patience, cunning, and endurance. He knew he could not match Krath's raw power, but he could outthink him. Krath roared and attacked again, this time slashing low. Marcus jumped back and rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the blade. He noticed the worn spots on Krath's armor and how the leader's breathing was already heavier than it should be. Using the beast's armor gave Marcus some protection, but it was also heavy and slowed him down. He had to be smart. Suddenly, Marcus lunged forward, driving his fist into a weak spot beneath Krath's arm. The alien stumbled but quickly recovered, snarling. The fight was not just a battle of strength, it was a test of wills. Krath swung wildly, frustrated by Marcus's evasions. But Marcus kept calm, moving steadily, striking only when the chance was clear. At one point, Krath caught Marcus's wrist and threw him against the arena wall. The impact shook Marcus, but he pushed himself up, wiping mud from his face. The crowd watched in silence, sensing the rising tension. Krath charged again, more carefully this time. Marcus met him halfway, parrying the blade with a piece of the beast's armor tied to his arm. The clang of metal on metal echoed through the arena. For a moment, they were locked, eyes meeting, both fighters breathing hard. Then Marcus saw it, a chance. Krath overcommitted, swinging wide with his blade. Marcus sidestepped, grabbed Krath's wrist, and twisted it sharply. Krath howled in pain and dropped his weapon. Marcus didn't strike. Instead, he stepped back and raised a hand in peace. The crowd was stunned. Marcus spoke clearly, his voice carrying across the arena. "I could end this fight, but strength alone is not leadership." He looked at Krath, then at the crowd. "Mercy, honor, and respect, these are what bind us." Krath, breathing heavily, met Marcus's gaze. Slowly, the anger in his eyes faded, replaced by grudging respect. The alien leader nodded. The council chief raised his hand again, signaling the end of the duel. The crowd erupted, cheers echoing, off the stone walls. Marcus had won not just by skill, but by showing a new kind of strength, the strength to spare a rival. Krath stepped forward and clasped Marcus's arm in a warrior's grip. "Today you have shown us what a human can be," Krath said, "a leader worthy of respect." Marcus nodded. The tradition had been honored, but something had changed. That night, Marcus sat among Krath's council, the beast's skull resting on the stone table before them. Discussions began, not of war, but of peace. Marcus spoke of alliances, of shared knowledge, and of a greater threat beyond their worlds. Krath listened, and slowly, a new future took shape. The human who was sent to die had returned not just as a survivor, but as a symbol, a beacon for change. The morning after the duel dawned clear and bright. The sun rose over the alien war camp, casting warm light on the stone towers and banners that still bore the mark of the Varric beast. But something had changed. The camp no longer felt like a place of endless war. Marcus stood at the center of the council hall, the massive beast's skull mounted above the ancient stone table. Around him sat Commander Krath and the alien leaders, their faces thoughtful. For the first time, they listened to a human not as a prisoner or enemy, but as an equal. Marcus spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. "The war between your people and mine has cost too much," he said. "But there is something greater coming, something that threatens both of us." He paused, letting his words settle. "If we do not unite, we will both fall." Krath's eyes narrowed, but he did not interrupt. The council murmured among themselves, weighing the truth in Marcus's speech. For years, both species had prepared for battle. training warriors and building weapons, but neither had looked beyond their anger and pride. Marcus continued, I propose an alliance. Together, we can share knowledge, protect our worlds, and face the real enemy. A silence fell. Then Krath stood, his voice firm but respectful. You have shown strength, courage, and wisdom. You have earned the right to speak for your people. He looked at the council. Let this alliance begin. Outside, the alien soldiers and human prisoners alike watched as the leaders signed the new pact. For many, it was hard to believe. The human who had been sent to die had become a symbol of hope. Marcus walked among them, wearing the Varric beast's armor, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. A reminder that survival and respect could be won through honor. Krath approached, him, the old warrior's eyes softening. You changed our tradition, he said quietly. Not by breaking the rules, but by showing what they truly mean. Marcus smiled. Sometimes, the strongest traditions need to grow. News of the alliance spread quickly. Across the stars, humans and Krath's people began to communicate, sharing technology and culture. The tale of the man who returned wearing the beast's bones became a legend, told around fires, in council halls, and on distant worlds. Children learned of Marcus's courage and cleverness. They learned that being strong was not just about muscle or weapons, but heart and mind. Months later, Marcus stood on a balcony overlooking the new Joint Command Center. Ships from both species sat side by side, ready to explore, defend, and build a future together. He thought of Earth, his home, and the friends he had lost. The journey had been hard, but the reward was worth it. A shadow fell across the balcony. Krath joined him, looking out at the stars. Your people have many lessons to teach us, Krath said, and you have shown us that humans are more than just survivors. They are leaders. Marcus nodded, and we have much to learn from each other. The two leaders stood side by side, watching the sky as the first fleet of their combined forces prepared to launch. Together, they would face whatever dangers came next. The story of the human who returned wearing the beast's bones was no longer just a tale of survival. It was a story of hope, honor, and a future rewritten by courage.